How many people in here are in the space industry now? Raise your hand if you're in the space industry. Oh, excellent. This is perfect. So all of you must have listened to Deep Space Networking 1, which was my first speech on how to get a job in the space industry. So now that that is a success, we are now in Deep Space Networking 2, your next job. So that's exciting, right? I got a lot of energy here, and you're probably wondering, how do I know anything about what I'm talking about here? Well, what's interesting is that in our business, you'll find that many people, if you look at who spoke over the last couple days, you'll see that their resumes include a whole bunch of different jobs. And through a lot of luck and some really good mentorship, I've been very fortunate to work both in the public sector and in the private sector across a whole bunch of different space policy jobs, including at the White House, at the Department of Interior, working on Landsat, at NASA, and then a couple different private sector jobs. But like I said, that's not unique to me. And why is that? It's because in our industry, the role of the public sector, of government, is incredibly important to a lot of what we do in the private sector, and vice versa. And so you'll see that many of the people that you see as your mentors or maybe your bosses or leaders in your organization had this very diverse career. And so the idea of going from one job to another job across different parts of the space sector is actually very inherent to a lot of our careers. And so it's something that we actually talk about a lot. And you'll talk about a lot with your peers. You'll even talk a lot with your bosses about it. And you'll find that in some of the jobs you have where your boss may be encouraging you to think about what your next step is because they themselves have moved around and seen the benefit to their career. So before I see there's a few managers and bosses in here who are giving me dirty looks and saying, why are you telling all my staff to leave? And that's not my goal. And in fact, I will start with why you shouldn't leave your job. So let's start with that. We've all had Michael Scott moments, just incredibly cringy moments where you just want to run home and hide under the covers. And I just want to tell you that is not, 99% of the time, that is not a reason to leave your job. We've all had them. Don't believe me? A few years ago, I sent an email talking about the main issues I was having with the White House space policy team in their response to COVID. Put that email together to send to some other folks in my organization. Sent it away. Somehow also included a member of the White House space policy team on that email. Noticed that immediately, stomach fell to the ground. Sent that all caps email. Attention everybody, please do not reply to this chain. Accidentally added someone that I shouldn't have. Smiley face emoji. And of course, what happens? A reply all, right? Reply all from the boss. There you go. And then, oh no, snarky guy, he's going to reply. Snarky guy, reply all. Oh, this is going to be really tough to recover from. But I did. I made it through that. For those of you who are more technically minded, one of my best friends, his first month of the job in an IT division, he had to do his big first server update. He worked at a global manufacturing company. Super excited, got it teed up to run over the weekend so it wouldn't disrupt operations. When midnight struck in Japan, the emails and phone calls began. Then Malaysia, then India, then the Middle East, then Europe. Whatever he had done had started to disrupt and shut down servers across the global network. A tough day for my buddy. But he survived. The butt of a lot of jokes for at least a year plus, but he spent over a decade with that company, increasing lines of responsibility. So just you have these Michael Scott moments, not a reason to leave. Now, of course, some of you are looking at me going like, Mike, I've never had that at all. Thanks for oversharing. So let's get into something more interesting, right? Your job's just meh, right? Or you're just frustrated, you know? And you just gotta change something. So is this a reason to leave? Well, maybe. So I think I know, you know what I'm gonna say, right? You know what I'm gonna say? Absolutely not. This is a keynote, guys. This is easy advice. I'm going keynote here. What am I gonna say? What I'm gonna say is, what you need to do is think, when you're in that situation, think about a solution that you can articulate to a human who can do something about it, right? So a solution that you can tell a human in your organization who can do something about it. What do I mean about that, right? I'm so frustrated. All I do is write technical manuals all day. I really want to build something. I just write technical manuals. What does your company do? They write technical manuals. Well, there's not much you're going to do in that situation, right? You're a bit constrained on what you want out of your job. Now let's say I'm just so bored in my project. I've been working on it on 3 years now. It's all the same issues. I'm not tested. There's another project that just came through the door. It's got a whole new team. I'd love to be a part of that, right? That's something, a solution you can articulate to someone who probably works at your office who could probably do something about it to put you on that team, right? A very different set of circumstances in thinking about the frustrations of your job and whether there's something to do about it. So I call those kinds of things growth attributes, and I want to get into them. But there's one more thing I want to talk about before I get to, and that's this, right? You get the text, hey, can we talk? Sure, what's up? Sam's leaving her job. She is? Where's she going? Another job. What's happening to her job? It's open. Guess what I heard? They're talking about you. Yes. I heard they want to hire you. Yeah, it's going to be great. They're going to up the salary. It's going to be amazing. There's all these opportunities. Oh my goodness, all I can think about. Do I need a resume? Yes, I need it today. Can you get me a resume? Absolutely. I can't wait to get you a resume. That's all I can think about now. All I can think about is Sam's job. It's going to be amazing. And now what happens? Now all I can think about are all the terrible things in my current job. Oh, if I went to Sam's job, it'd be so amazing. I don't have to deal with all these people in that project and the thing I have due next month. Oh, thank goodness, right? Pause, right? Again, could that be a great job? Could Sam's job be amazing? Yes. But as humans, we love it. Who doesn't want people talking about them and maybe offering them a job and more money and all this excitement, right? And you just got to take a pause. Because again, time to focus on what is it that you're looking to move for, right? What are those articulable things? What are those actionable things you can talk about? So what I like to think about when I'm sort of thinking about this myself and when I'm sort of talking to folks on my team about this is when I think about the growth attribute setting, I think about the theory of the case, right? So what do you want? I want what, right? And so what's the first one probably? Money, money, money. Who doesn't want money, right? So it's money. Sometimes it's money. And that's okay, right? Money's pretty important. It buys things. It pays off loans. It gets you rent. All kinds of stuff, right? So in thinking about money, there's actually a couple ways to think about it, though, right? So one thing that I've seen people do is there's an offer out there, and it makes just a little bit more money, and they're looking at their job, and they're saying, hey, it's the same job, and they're being paid more, and that's frustrating, right? That's pretty frustrating. But it's important to think about that as whether that's a job change situation or whether that's a situation within your own work environment. You have the opportunity either to just get a raise or maybe change your skills or change some of your duties a bit to get that same amount of work. And I got to tell you, this has never been more relevant than right now in our COVID, post-COVID world. So many employers are thinking about this. A lot of people got hired before COVID, right before COVID. Now, what happened during COVID? Mass amount of job change. A lot of people leaving the offices, a lot of people coming into new work environments. And so you may find yourself being in a place where you're thinking, you know, I took this job, I got paid X, and then 8 months later, all these people who joined post-COVID, they've got all these different titles and different salaries. Wait a minute, this isn't fair. And that might be totally true. And it just may be a circumstance of one of the more disruptive job environments we've ever faced, at least in sort of our lifetimes, right? And so that's the kind of thing that not only can you talk about it, it's probably very likely that the place you're working is thinking a lot about it too. So if that's what's going to drive you out the door, just pause a minute and really think about, is this about sort of pay for this job type, or is it something about a longer career trajectory, right? And that is a bit different, right? So when you think about a job, and is it an X percentage raise, but then in 12 months or 18 months, I'm going to find myself equally frustrated about another same X percentage raise, right? That's not going to probably be worth that disruption of the change, right? What is different is if making that move puts you into a different category, a different pay band, a different growth set of opportunities. And to me, that is a much more meaningful factor in thinking about that job change. So what's another one of these growth attributes? I'd say the next is managing people. Managing people is an incredibly hard skill, and some people are incredible at it. A lot of people aren't. I hope I fall somewhere in between, and I think that's what most of us can hope for. But that's a real skill and a real growth. And in your own job, you may or may not have that ability. That can be constrained by where you work. It just may be the nature of the size of the office, the types of roles, and that could be a reason to go somewhere else, because as you think about your career long term, getting the experience of managing people can make a whole difference and open up a whole different pathways into your future. What's another thing like that? Budget. The ability to create your own budget and manage your own budget. Again, that could be something in your current job that if you just look around or you ask, you can develop that skill. But that may be a reason why you might need to go to another organization. Why is that important? Because as you get increasing jobs that are looking for increased experience, that you can say that you were able to build a budget, manage that budget, that just becomes a core skill just like managing people. And sometimes that can be constrained by the job you're in at the moment. What's another growth attribute I like to think about? And that's technical skill. You know, I'm amazed. I've been very lucky to be able to be partnered with the Brooke Owens Fellowship and the Patty Gray Smith Fellowship for several years now. And when I see those resumes, and probably many of you are, you know, those same resumes in this audience here, just absolutely blown away by the skills you've developed, the time, the effort, and the passion that is inside those resumes. And when you're thinking about your job, you put a lot into that, and you may have a deep passion for those areas, and are you being able to do that in your job, right? And I've talked to folks where they say, look, I really, I worked a lot on this engineering degree, I really love engineering, and in my current job, I'm just not doing that kind of engineering. I really want to find something where I can do that, right? That to me is a real growth attribute, right? A real sort of reason to substantially think about that change. It also goes the other way too. And I find myself in that bucket. So I was a lawyer, am a lawyer. And at a certain point in my career, I had to decide, am I going to step away from practicing law as a main skill set? And I did. And I did because I purposely said I wanted to work a bit more on the management side, on the policy side. Now, I still use my legal skills every day. I deal with a lot of legal issues in all the jobs I've had, but I made that purposeful step away from my technical field. But that was tough. And so, like I said, it can go both ways, but that can be another growth attribute as you're thinking about why a career change may be something to do. The final thing, and this is particularly important in space, and it's where I started, it's thinking about jobs in the private sector if you're in the public sector, or in the public sector if you're in the private sector. Why that's particularly important for space is because both are so important to each other. The public sector, government, is an incredible investor and supporter of private sector activities, both in national security space as well as in civil space, exploration, scientific endeavors. And then it's also a major regulator. It's deciding how we get our spectrum, how we do our launch licenses, how we shape our businesses. And especially in a time right now where the space industry is so nascent and we're creating new commercial markets, that government role is incredibly exciting. And so we heard, from the FAA a little bit ago, all these roles, they're coming up with rules that were written at a time where the commercial industry didn't exist. So just an incredible dynamic time across both those sectors. Then on the private sector side, everything the public sector is doing, they're not doing it on their own. They're doing it with industry. Since the dawn of the space age, the launch vehicles, the spacecraft, the ground systems, the engineering software behind that, all of that supported by the private sector, right? They go hand in hand in our industry. Not only that, within both the public and private sector, they're all the jobs that you do, right? There's engineers, there's accountants, there's lawyers, there's analysts, every single job on both sides. And so you'll see, like I said before, if you look at the resumes of a lot of folks who maybe spoke for the last couple of days, you'll see that back and forth because it gives you an incredible opportunity on the government side to understand the private sector, understand how the regulations you're writing or the incentives you're creating, how that private sector gets impacted. If you're in the private sector, understanding how the government operates, why it's funding certain things or not funding certain things, why it's regulating certain things or not regulating certain things, can really be incredibly important to your mission success as well. And so that'd be the sort of other thing to think quite a bit about. And it can be a big career change, right, in terms of responsibility, in terms of pay, et cetera. But huge benefits on both sides. And as you're thinking about your career in space, highly recommend to think about the growth attributes of going back and forth from one to the other. So with that, I definitely want to leave open the opportunity for follow-up if you want to hear more cringy stories or anything else. And to that, I recommend you call Clay Morey at Voyager Space Systems. He's much better than me at this, and he'd welcome your call. So thank you so much.